Chuka had everything many men spent their whole lives chasing. He was in his early 30s, tall, handsome, calm, and richly blessed. Money was not a problem for him. He had mansions in different cities, expensive cars, land in good places, respect in business circles, and the kind of power that made people stand up when he entered a room. In Lagos, people knew his name. Some admired him, some feared him. Many wanted something from him, but none of it gave him peace. Women were always around him, at parties, at business meetings, at charity events, even in church sometimes. There was always one woman smiling too quickly, laughing too loudly, or trying too hard to be noticed. At first, Chuka used to think maybe one of them was real. Maybe one of them truly liked him. But after some time, he saw the same pattern again and again. Before they asked how he was feeling, they asked what car he drove. Before they asked what kind of man he was, they asked how many companies he owned.
What car do you drive? How many companies do you own? Which part of Lagos do you live in?
It was always the same thing. Money first. Everything else later. Sometimes, even when a woman tried to act soft and caring, it did not take long before her real interest came out.
Chuka, could you help me get a shop? Chuka, buy me a car, it would mean everything. Chuka, my brother needs help with travel, could you pay? And Chuka, a flat for me, just to support.
Chuka would sit there and listen, his face calm, but inside, something kept growing colder. He was tired. Tired of being admired and not known. Tired of being wanted and still feeling alone. That night, he was seated in the private lounge of his Lagos mansion, watching a woman named Chioma smile at him across the table. She was beautiful, fashionable, and polished. She had spent the evening speaking sweetly, touching his arm lightly, and calling him a good man. Then just when he thought maybe this one would at least pretend longer, she leaned closer and said with a small pout,
Chuka, you know my birthday is next week. I saw one diamond set online. It is not too much. If you love me, you will get it for me.
He looked at her quietly. She smiled again, as if what she had said was normal. In that moment, something in him went still. Not angry, not shocked, just tired. After she left, Chuka remained there alone for a long time. The room was beautiful, soft lights, cold air, expensive furniture, silence. Yet it felt empty. He leaned back and stared ahead. What if nobody can love me without all this? He asked himself. Then another thought came. What if he stopped being Chuka the billionaire? What if, for once, he stood where ordinary men stood? Not hidden in comfort, not protected by money, not sitting behind tinted glass and security gates, but out there, in the open, where people spoke to you the way they truly felt. He wanted something rough, hard, and public. Something that would not leave room for fake respect. Something that would let him see real life the way many people lived it every day. That was when the idea came. A bus conductor. Not in Lagos. Lagos was too risky. Too many people knew his face. Even if they did not know him closely, no matter how rough he looked, someone could still recognize him. So he chose Onitsha, far from Lagos, busy, loud, crowded, and full of movement. A place where nobody would look twice at one more conductor hanging from the door of a bus and shouting for passengers. If a woman could love him there, at that level, then maybe that love was real. The next morning, he called Emeka. Emeka had worked for Chuka's family for many years. He was older than Chuka by almost 15 years and had known him since he was a boy. He was not just an employee, he was one of the few people Chuka trusted fully, quiet, loyal, careful with words, and steady in hard moments. When Emeka arrived, Chuka told him the plan. At first, Emeka thought he had not heard well.
Oga bus conductor. Yes. You mean real conductor? This one is not small joke.
I know. You want to suffer on purpose? Chuka gave a faint smile. Maybe suffering on purpose will teach me what comfort has hidden from me. Emeka looked at him for a long time. He knew Chuka well enough to understand that once he made up his mind, pushing against him was a waste of time. So he nodded.
If this is what you want, I will help you.
And he did. Within days, Emeka arranged everything. He found an old commercial bus on a crowded Onitsha route. The bus had seen better days. Its body was faded, one headlight looked weak, and the seats were worn out. It made the kind of noise that announced itself before it turned the corner. He also found a driver named Musa, a quiet man who only knew that a new conductor had been brought in to work with him. Musa did not know Chuka's real identity. To him, Chuka was just another man looking for work. Then came the change. Chuka could not look like himself. He put away his fine clothes and wore cheap shirts that had lost their shape. He changed into faded trousers. He wore rubber slippers on some days and worn sandals on others. He removed his wristwatch. He stopped using perfume. He put on a rough cap. He carried a small, dirty bag for change. He even let his beard grow out until his face lost its usual clean, polished look. When he finally looked at himself in the mirror, even he paused. The man staring back at him looked tired, rough, and ordinary. Good, he thought. That was exactly what he wanted. But dressing the part was the easy side. The harder part was learning the work. Emeka helped him settle in quietly in Onitsha and watched as he began to learn from the bus driver and the men around the park. He learned how to shout bus stops with force. He learned how to call passengers into the bus without sounding weak. He learned how to collect fares with one hand while holding the bus door with the other. He learned how to hang by the door while the bus was still moving. He learned how to give change quickly before a passenger started shouting. He learned how to settle arguments when two people claimed they had paid. He learned how to answer rude passengers without starting a fight. He learned how to dodge insults from impatient commuters. He learned how to deal with bus park boys who always wanted their share. He learned how to respond at police checkpoints without saying the wrong thing. By the time his first full day began, Chuka thought he was ready. He was wrong. Nothing prepared him for the reality. The heat was harsh. The bus was packed. People pushed, complained, argued, and shouted from morning till evening. Some passengers acted as if conductors were not human beings. One man nearly slapped him over change. One woman insulted his whole generation because the bus was too slow. A bus park boy cursed him for not bringing out money quickly enough. At one checkpoint, a police officer looked at him as if he was dirt. The noise never stopped. The dust entered everywhere. His throat began to hurt from shouting. His legs ached from standing. His head throbbed from the stress. At some point that afternoon, hanging at the bus door as the bus moved through traffic, Chuka looked out at the road and felt something close to shock. So this was how many people lived every day. This was how men struggled for daily bread. This was how they endured insult, pressure, heat, and exhaustion, then still went home with tired bodies and little money. By evening, his cheap shirt was soaked with sweat, his face was rough with dust, his voice had become hoarse, his shoulders ached badly. When the bus finally stopped for the day, he stood quietly for a moment, breathing hard. Musa, the driver, looked at him and laughed.
You never see anything. Now first day be this.
Chuka gave a tired smile but said nothing. Inside him, something had shifted. The day had been hard, dirty, loud, stressful. But for the first time in many years, nobody treated him like a prince. Nobody cared about his money. Nobody looked at him with false sweetness. Out there, he was just another man trying to survive. And strangely, under all the exhaustion, Chuka felt something he had not felt in a long time. He felt awake. He did not yet know that this rough new life was about to bring him pain, truth, and the kind of love he had almost given up on. But as he sat in that old bus park, dust on his skin and change in his dirty bag, one thing became clear to him. If love was going to find him, it would meet him here first. So Chuka returned to the bus park the next morning, and the next. At first, he had told himself this was only a test, a short lesson, something he would do for a while and then end when he had seen enough. But as the days passed, the life around him began to sink into him in a way he had not expected. He started to understand ordinary people little by little. Not from far away, not from reports, not from the back seat of an air-conditioned car, but from the same dust they breathed and the same noise they lived inside every day. He saw quickly that the life of a conductor was harder than most people imagined. People insulted them freely. Passengers spoke to them as if they were less than human. Some people entered the bus, sat down, and acted as if paying fare was an insult. When Chuka asked for money, they would hiss, look away, or pretend not to hear him. Some would say they had already paid when they had not. Some would wait until they reached their stop, then rush down and disappear into the crowd before he could stop them. More than once, he lost money from his own hand because he had to balance the bus account at the end of the day. Some passengers abused him for no reason. One man called him useless because the bus was full. A woman shouted at him because he did not have her change immediately. Another accused him of trying to cheat her over 50 naira and made so much noise that people turned to look. And many times, after all the shouting and stress, Chuka would look at what conductors actually ate in a whole day and feel a quiet pain in his chest. Bread and coke, bread and sachet water, sometimes nothing until evening. He saw men work from morning till night and still pause by the roadside with tired faces, eating dry bread as if that was enough to carry them through the day. He too began to eat that way. Some afternoons he and Musa, the driver, would stand near a kiosk with a loaf of bread between them and 1 bottle of coke or 2 sachets of water. No plates, no comfort, no time to rest, just quick food, then back to work. Each time Chuka would remember the dining table in his Lagos house, the polished plates, the fresh food, the quiet service, the things he had once seen as normal. Now he knew they were not normal. They were a privilege, and many people would never know such a life. As the days went on, his eyes opened wider. He saw mothers carrying babies on their backs, struggling to hold the child, their bag, and the rail of the bus at the same time. He saw old women counting coins carefully before entering. He saw students looking tired and hungry, trying to save transport money. He saw workers with worn shoes and heavy faces, going out before sunrise and returning after dark. He saw hawkers under the hot sun, moving from one bus to another, hoping somebody would buy ground nuts, plantain chips, cold water, or handkerchief. He saw a different the country, a harder Nigeria. A Nigeria that did not enter the rooms where men like him made decisions. The more he saw, the quieter he became. This life humbled him deeply. He had always thought he respected poor people. He paid salaries on time. He did not like open cruelty. He believed he was a fair man. But now he understood that fairness from a distance was not the same as understanding. Now, when he thought of the maids in his houses, the drivers, the cleaners, the cooks, the security men at his gates, he no longer saw them as people simply doing jobs around him. He saw their hidden suffering. He saw the transport they took before reaching his house. He saw the meals they skipped. He saw the small humiliations they swallowed before the day even began. And for the first time, Chuka truly understood that the comfort of men like him rested quietly on the backs of people like them. Without them, his life would not have been so easy. That truth sat heavily in his heart. One afternoon, as the bus slowed near a familiar stop, he noticed a young woman stepping in. She was not dressed like someone rich, but she carried herself with style. Her name, he would later learn, was Adaobi. She was beautiful, in a bright, playful way. She had neat hair, fitted office clothes, and the kind of smile that drew attention easily. She worked in a small office not far from one of the routes they passed, and after some days, Chuka began to notice that she used their bus often. The first time she really spoke to him, she smiled and said,
Conductor, you too fine for this rough work.
Chuka looked at her surprised, then gave a small laugh. She laughed too. After that, she started greeting him whenever she entered the bus.
How's your day going?
My day? It's all right.
Good to hear.
Sometimes she joked with him about angry passengers.
Your passengers are always ready for war.
Sometimes she told him to smile more because his serious face made him look proud. It was light and easy. And because she was one of the first women to notice him in that rough state without disgust, Chuka found himself watching her a little more. Maybe, he thought, she was different. Maybe not every smile hid a demand. Adaobi made the long day feel less dry. She was friendly. She praised his looks openly and said more than once that if he dressed well, many girls would run after him. Chuka would smile and say nothing. For a few days, he allowed himself hope. Then the small requests began. At first, it was nothing serious. "One day carry me free, na," she said with a grin. Chuka hesitated, then allowed it. Another day, she asked for recharge card. "It is just small money," she said. "You cannot tell me you do not have it." He gave her. Then it became transport money on a day she claimed she was short. Then lunch money. Then another free ride. The requests kept coming, always with a sweet face, always sounding small when she said them. When Chuka tried to explain that conductor work did not leave room for carelessness, Adaobi frowned.
This work doesn't leave room for carelessness.
You people are always saying story. Is it not money you are collecting every day?
Chuka looked at her.
I still have to give account. The driver will balance everything.
She rolled her eyes.
So he cannot even help a friend.
That word stayed with him. Friend. He had not asked her to be his girlfriend. He had not promised her anything. They were only talking. Still, she was already measuring his usefulness by what she could collect from him. Even then, Chuka gave a little more. Not because he was foolish. He only wanted to see clearly what was in her heart. He wanted to be sure. But Adaobi changed fast. The sweetness reduced. The demands increased. She began to talk as if he owed her something. One day she asked him for money again, and when he said he did not have enough to spare, she hissed.
What kind of man are you? You are not even working hard enough. Every time, one excuse or the other.
Chuka stared at her quietly.
Chuka, send me 2K for lunch.
Ada, I can't. I have my own needs.
Your own needs? I see.
Her face changed at once. That bright smile disappeared. The softness in her voice vanished.
So this is who you are. I was even wasting my time talking to you.
Chuka kept quiet. Adaobi looked him over from head to toe, from his rough cap to his faded shirt, and laughed without kindness.
A bus conductor can never be useful to me. I do not even know why I was trying.
Then she walked away. Just like that. Chuka stood there for a moment, feeling something heavy settle inside him. He was not even in a relationship with her. He had not asked her for love. He had not made any promise. Yet the moment his hand closed, her heart closed too. That evening the bus felt heavier than usual. The road noise irritated him. Passengers' voices grated on him. By the time the day ended, he sat down inside the parked bus and rested his elbows on his knees. He felt disappointed. Not because Adaobi had left, but because her behavior had reminded him too much of the world he was trying to escape. Different clothes, different setting, same hunger. When Emeka called him that night to check on him, Chuka spoke little. "Tough day?" Emeka asked. Chuka let out a tired breath. Maybe this plan is useless. Emeka was quiet for a moment. Why? Chuka looked into the darkness ahead of him.
Even here it is the same. The ladies still look at what they can get. I am beginning to think I am chasing something that does not exist.
Emeka did not answer quickly. Then he said softly, "You have only just started." Chuka said nothing after that. But when the call ended, he remained there a long time thinking. For the first time since coming to Onitsha, he almost gave up. Almost. That was the truth. He sat there in the old bus park long after the other buses had started leaving. The air smelled of dust, petrol, and tiredness. Men were closing for the day. Hawkers were packing what was left of their goods. A few conductors were still shouting for late passengers. Chuka leaned back in his seat and looked out through the window. Maybe Emeka was right. Maybe he had only just started. But that did not change how tired he felt inside. The next day came and went much like the others. Stress, noise, heat, change, arguments, nothing special. By evening his shirt was wet with sweat, his throat hurt again, and all he wanted was for the day to end. Then, just as the sun was going down and the road was turning orange under the fading light, Chuka saw her. She was standing quietly at the bus stop. Not pushing, not shouting, not waving both hands in the air like some of the others. Just standing there. She looked tired, like someone returning from a long day of work, but there was still calm on her face. Her hair was packed in a simple all-back style that made her face look even softer. She held a modest handbag close to her side. Something about her was quiet. Something about her was steady. Chuka pulled the bus door wider and called the stop the usual way. She stepped forward and entered. Unlike many passengers, she looked at him and said, "Good evening." Just like that. Simple, respectful. Chuka paused for a second, then answered, "Good evening." She moved in without noise and found a seat. She did not wrinkle her face because of the bus. She did not look at him with disgust. She did not act like doing him a favor by entering. He noticed that at once. As the bus moved, Chuka continued his work, collecting fares and returning change. At the next stop, an old woman entered with slow steps. She looked weak and confused and held crushed notes in her hand. When Chuka asked for her fare, it became clear she was short. The old woman started begging softly. "My son, this is all I have. I will bring the balance next time." Before Chuka could even decide what to do, the young woman with the all-back hairstyle opened her handbag quietly. She brought out some money and added the balance. "There is no problem, Mama," she said gently. "Take it." The old woman looked at her with deep gratitude and began to thank her. The young woman only smiled faintly and looked away, as if what she had done was nothing. But to Chuka, it was not nothing. He stood there, one hand on the rail, watching her for a moment before turning away. He had seen many people in this bus. He had seen those who fought over 50 naira, those who pretended not to see another person suffering, those who would rather insult than help. So this small act touched him more than he expected. When the bus reached her stop, she stood up, adjusted her handbag, and moved toward the door. As she stepped down, she looked at him again. "Thank you," she said sincerely. Not the careless kind of thank you people threw around without meaning. This one was real. Then she left. Chuka watched her walk away until the bus moved again. He did not know her name. He did not know where she worked. He did not know if he would ever see her again. But something about her stayed in his heart. At the next stop, as passengers rushed in and out, he caught sight of Adaobi by the roadside. She was with two other girls. She saw him clearly. Their eyes met for 1 second. Then she turned her face, acted as if she had not seen him, and entered another bus. Chuka looked away. This time he did not mind. The slight sting he might have felt before was gone. After what he had just seen, Adaobi no longer mattered. The next morning he found himself looking out more carefully each time the bus approached that same stop. By afternoon he saw her again. The same young woman. The same simple handbag. The same calm face, though she looked even more tired that day. She entered, greeted him politely again, and sat down. This time, Chuka listened more closely when another passenger greeted her by name. "Ifunanya, shift small," the woman said. Ifunanya. The name stayed with him at once. From that day, Chuka began to notice her more often. She used the same route regularly. Sometimes in the morning when she was going to work. Sometimes in the evening when she was returning home with that same quiet tiredness on her face. He started to recognize the way she stood at the bus stop, the way she held her bag, the way she greeted without trying too hard. She never tried to cheat him.
Here you are.
She never argued over change she had already received. She never insulted him. She never acted like he was beneath her. If the bus was crowded, she adjusted herself without making trouble. If other passengers were rude, she stayed out of it. There was something simple and decent about her. And Chuka found himself waiting for those brief moments when she would step into the bus and say, "Good morning," or "Good evening," in that soft voice. Days passed like that. Nothing dramatic. Nothing forced. Just small moments. But sometimes, small moments are the ones that begin everything. Then one afternoon, the rain came. It started suddenly, the way heavy rain often did. 1 minute the sky looked only a little dull, and the next minute water was falling hard, beating roofs, roads, and bus windows with force. People began to run in every direction. Passengers rushed toward buses at once. Conductors shouted louder. Drivers grew impatient. Bags, slippers, elbows, and wet shoulders collided everywhere. The stop where Ifunanya usually entered was already crowded when their bus pulled up. Chuka was at the door, shouting the route, trying to keep people from forcing themselves in all at once. Then he saw her. Ifunanya was there in the middle of the rush, trying to enter before the rain soaked her completely. Someone pushed from behind. Another person tried to squeeze past her. For one dangerous second, her foot slipped against the wet step and her body tilted badly. Chuka moved fast. He stretched out his hand, caught her firmly by the arm and pulled her toward the bus before she could fall. "Careful," he said sharply, more frightened than angry. She steadied herself and held the rail. For a second, both of them stayed like that, rain splashing all around them, noise everywhere, his hand still on her arm. Then Chuka quickly helped her inside and blocked the others from crushing into her.
Enter well, slowly.
She looked up at him, breathing a little hard.
Thank you. If not for you, I would have fallen.
This rain has made everybody mad.
That made her smile. A small smile, but enough. When the bus moved and the shouting reduced a little, Chuka passed by her side collecting fares. This time, when he reached her, she looked at him with more ease than before.
You saved me today.
He gave a faint smile.
It's just part of the work.
No, not everybody will care.
That simple answer stayed with him. Later, when the bus became less tense and the rain softened outside, she asked,
Do you work this route every day?
Most days,
It is not easy.
it is not.
She nodded, as if she understood more than he expected. And just like that, the door opened. Not fully, not all at once, but enough. For the first time, it felt like their words were no longer just greetings between a conductor and a passenger. Something quieter had begun. Something real. And Chuka felt it. After that
Good
rainy
morning,
day,
Chuka.
something changed between them. It was still simple at first, nothing serious, nothing rushed. When Ifunanya entered the bus in the morning, she greeted him with a little more ease. When she returned in the evening, she no longer sat in silence all through the ride.
It's nice seeing you again.
Their conversations were short, but natural.
How has your day been?
Fine. And yours? Work was stressful?
A bit. I'm fine.
Little by little, they began to know each other. One evening, as the bus moved through slow traffic, Chuka asked,
What work do you do?
I work in a small provision shop.
He nodded.
Every day?
Yes,
Morning till evening?
it is not much, but it helps.
She gave a tired smile. Later, on another day, she told him more.
My father is dead. I live with my mother. The money I earn is never enough. I buy food, help with medicine. I just hold the home together.
That touched Chuka more than he showed. He too spoke, but carefully. He told her only what a bus conductor like him would say.
I'm trying to survive. The work is hard. Some days are better than others. I'm just pushing forward like everybody else.
He never said too much. He had learned to measure his words. One wrong detail could expose him. So he spoke simply and stayed close to the life he was pretending to live. Still, even with his careful answers, Ifunanya did not treat him with the kind of pity that insults a person. She did not speak to him like he was unfortunate. She respected his hard work. One evening, after watching him settle an argument between two passengers and still return everybody's change correctly, she said, You try. Chuka looked at her. Try? She nodded.
This work is not easy. Many people cannot do it.
He gave a faint smile. What else can I do? Ifunanya looked at him with quiet sincerity.
Any honest work is honorable.
The words were simple, but they went straight into his heart. No woman had spoken to him like that since he became a poor conductor. Most either looked down on him or measured him. But this one saw dignity in hard work. That stayed with him. As the weeks passed, their talks became longer. Not always inside the bus, sometimes after her stop. If the bus had space and Musa was taking a short break, Chuka would stand by the roadside and speak with her for a few more minutes before she left. Other times, on Sundays or on quieter evenings, they found small ways to meet outside the bus route. Nothing hidden, Nothing dirty. Just two people beginning to like each other. One afternoon, after several of those quiet meetings, Chuka made up his mind to test her heart more deeply. He invited her to where he was staying. It was a small room in a face-me-I-face-you building in a poor part of Onitsha. One narrow passage, many rooms facing each other, shared bathroom, shared tap outside, noise from children, voices from neighbors, pots clanging from one room to another. Ifunanya hesitated at first when he asked, not because she did not trust him, but because she was a decent woman and did not move carelessly. Chuka understood that. So he told her to come in the afternoon, when everybody would be outside and the compound would be busy. He spoke gently, and in the end she agreed. When she came, she looked around quietly. The room was small. A simple mattress, a plastic chair, a small table, a bucket in one corner. A few clothes hung neatly on a rope. Nothing in the room suggested comfort. Chuka watched her face carefully. There was no disgust in it, no mockery, only quiet understanding. He offered her the chair and sat on the edge of the bed. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Chuka said softly,
This is where I stay.
It is clean.
That is all I can manage for now.
She looked at him, but said nothing. That was when Chuka decided to open the door a little more. He told her how hard conductor life was. He told her people insulted him every day. He told her some passengers spoke to him as if he did not matter. He told her some refused to pay. Some lied. Some shouted over small change. Then he looked straight at her and said the thing he had been carrying in his chest.
No woman would want to build a future with a man like me.
He said it quietly, but he meant every word in that moment. Then he watched her, closely, carefully. This was what he needed to know. Ifunanya was silent for a few seconds. Then she said,
Who told you that?
Chuka did not answer. She continued, her voice calm.
Money comes and goes. What matters is peace, honesty, and the kind of heart a man has.
Still, he said nothing. Ifunanya lowered her eyes briefly, then looked back at him. A poor man with honesty is better than a rich man with pride. The room became very still. Chuka felt something move deeply inside him. Not excitement, not surprise. Something deeper. Something that felt like relief after a long burden. For the first time, he believed he may have found the woman he had been praying for. He did not rush her after that day. But inside him, hope had come alive. Chuka began to find little reasons to see her more. Sometimes he waited near her bus stop a few minutes longer than necessary. Sometimes he made sure Musa took the route where she would enter. Sometimes, when the day ended early, he stayed back just to walk a short distance with her. One evening, he bought roasted corn from a roadside woman and handed one to her. Ifunanya laughed softly.
For you.
So conductors buy roasted corn now?
Only for special passengers.
She shook her head, smiling, and took it. Another evening, he bought ground nuts and shared them with her after work while they stood near a quiet corner by the road. They talked and cracked the shells one after another, as if they had known each other much longer than they truly had. Their friendship was changing. Slowly. Naturally. What started inside a noisy bus was becoming something softer and stronger. Ifunanya began to trust him deeply. She liked how calm he was, how he listened when she spoke, how he did not always rush to talk about himself, how he noticed things, how he seemed thoughtful even in small moments. She had met many men who wanted to impress by talking too much. Chuka was different. He did not push himself forward. He made room for her words too. More than once, Ifunanya found herself studying him quietly. There were moments when he did not feel like an ordinary conductor. Not because of his clothes. Those were rough enough. Not because of his room. That was simple enough too. But in the way he spoke sometimes. In the way he carried himself. In the way his anger stayed controlled even when people insulted him. In the way his eyes rested on people, as if he saw more than he said. There was something refined in him. Something she could not explain. She noticed it, but she pushed the thought aside. Her heart was already opening, and she did not want to turn simple things into suspicion. So she kept moving with what she knew. He was kind to her. He was honest in the little he said. He worked hard. He listened. And when she was with him, she felt seen. By then, even Chuka could no longer pretend to himself that this was only a test. He was already falling for her. And from the way Ifunanya's voice softened around him, from the way her eyes searched for him when she reached the bus stop, from the quiet comfort growing between them, he knew she was falling too. Neither of them said it yet. But love had already entered, quietly. And after that, it became harder for Ifunanya to hide what she felt. She no longer spoke about Chuka like he was just one conductor she happened to know. His name began to come up in her small daily stories. If her mother asked why she was smiling, she would brush it aside. If her friend asked where she was coming from, she would answer carelessly. But inside, she was happy. One evening after work, she introduced him to two of her friends near the road. "This is Chuka," she said simply, with a soft pride in her voice. She did not lower her head when she said his name. She did not act ashamed. She stood near him openly. One of the girls greeted him politely, but the other one, a fellow salesgirl from the provision line, looked him over from his rough shirt down to his worn sandals and laughed lightly. "So this is him?" she asked Ifunanya. Ifunanya frowned a little. "Yes, so?" The girl shook her head. "No, I am just surprised."
Out of all the men in Onitsha, you could not even find bus driver. Na conductor you carry.
Ifunanya's face changed at once. The girl continued, careless and sharp. "You really stooped low. Ordinary conductor. This one is even below what I expected from you." Chuka said nothing. He had heard worse before, but he watched Ifunanya. She did not laugh. She did not bend under the mockery. She stood straight and said,
I love him like that. What matters to me is how he treats me. He respects me. He has a good heart. That is enough.
Her friend hissed softly, still unconvinced, but Ifunanya did not move back from where she stood. Chuka felt those words deeply. She had defended him without shame, not in private, not in whispers, openly. And in that moment, something became clear to him. He could not continue lying forever. The more he watched her stand by him, the heavier the truth became inside him. He had started this to find out if love was real. Now he had found it. But if he kept hiding behind the disguise, then he would become the very thing he hated, a person taking advantage of someone's heart. That night he hardly slept. He feared losing her. He feared the pain that would come when she heard the truth. But he knew the truth had to come out. The next day he asked Ifunanya to keep one of her free afternoons for him. "I want to see you," he said. She smiled. "You say it like it is something serious." He looked at her quietly. "It is." When the day came, Ifunanya waited where he had told her. She expected to see him in his usual rough clothes, maybe coming down from a bus or walking toward her with that small dirty bag hanging from his hand. But that was not what happened. A black luxury car stopped in front of her. Ifunanya stepped back at once. The door opened. Then Chuka came out. Clean, neat, freshly shaved around the edges of his beard, wearing expensive clothes that fit him perfectly. Polished shoes, no rough cap, no conductor bag, no dust. He looked like a completely different man. Ifunanya stared at him in shock. For a
Chuka.
moment, she did not even
Yes.
move. "Chuka?" she asked slowly, as if she could not believe the face she was seeing. "Yes," he said. Her eyes moved from him to the car, then back to him again.
What is this?
Please, come with me. I need to explain everything.
She did not answer at first. Her face was full of confusion, fear, and something else rising slowly inside her. But in the end, she entered the car. The silence inside was heavy. Chuka took her to a quiet place, somewhere calm enough for the truth he was about to speak. When they sat down facing each other, he did not hide anymore. He told her everything.
I'm not a conductor. I'm a billionaire. I disguised myself because I wanted to find true love. In Onitsha, you treated me like a person, not for my money. That's when I fell in love with you.
When he finished, the silence between them was painful. Ifunanya sat very still. She looked hurt. Not loud hurt. Not angry noise. Just deep pain.
So all this time, you were lying to me.
Chuka lowered his eyes. Yes. She swallowed hard. Everything?
Not everything. What I feel for you is real.
But the tears had already gathered in her eyes.
You let me open my heart to you. You let me stand for you. You let me defend you. And all that time, you knew I did not know who you really were.
Her words cut him badly because they were true. Chuka leaned forward. I know I hurt you. I know. But please believe me, I never meant to mock you. I was only a lonely man trying to know if love still existed. Ifunanya looked away. For some moments, neither of them spoke. Chuka let her sit with it. He did not rush her. He did not try to force forgiveness. He only sat there with his own shame and waited. When Ifunanya finally spoke again, her voice was quieter.
I was hurt. I am still hurt.
You have every right to be.
She looked at him again, this time more deeply, as if trying to see the man behind both versions of him. Then she said the words that broke something open inside him.
I did not fall in love with your clothes. I fell in love with your heart.
Chuka's chest tightened.
Ifunanya.
She raised her hand gently, stopping him.
I do not like the lie. But I understand the pain that made you do it. And what I felt for you was real.
For a long moment, they only looked at each other. Then Chuka reached for her hand. This time, she let him hold it. That day, they chose love again. Openly. Truthfully. Chuka felt light after that. Not because the truth had been easy, but because it was finally out. He no longer had to live in fear of being discovered. He no longer had to split himself in two. And because Ifunanya had stayed, he became even more certain that she was the woman he wanted. He believed his family would see it too. He believed they would understand that a woman who loved him in dust and hardship was worth more than all the polished daughters of rich men. So with hope still full in him, Chuka took Ifunanya to his family's mansion. She dressed simply and respectfully. A modest dress, neat hair, no loud makeup, no false show. She looked exactly like herself, and to Chuka that was enough. The mansion was large and silent in the way only old wealth can be. High gates, long driveway, quiet workers moving carefully, marble floors, expensive furniture that looked untouched. Ifunanya noticed everything, but she stayed calm. Chuka led her into the sitting room, where his parents were waiting. His father, Mr. Namdi, sat with the bearing of a man who had spent years being obeyed. Strong face, firm voice, the kind of man whose presence filled a room before he even spoke. His mother, Mrs. Namdi, sat beside him, elegant and controlled, her eyes sharp in the way of women who had seen a lot and judged even more. At first they were calm. They greeted Ifunanya politely. They asked her to sit. Mrs. Namdi even smiled faintly and asked about her work. But the calm did not last. The moment Chuka explained who she was, where she came from, and how they met, the atmosphere changed. Especially when he said he had met her while pretending to be a bus conductor. Mr. Namdi's face hardened first. A bus conductor? He repeated slowly. Chuka held his gaze. Yes. Mrs. Namdi looked from her son to Ifunanya and back again.
And this girl is from that background?
She is from a good home. She is hardworking. She is kind.
But his father had already made up his mind.
You cannot marry a girl like this.
The room went still. Ifunanya lowered her eyes, but she did not lose her composure. Chuka's face changed.
What do you mean, a girl like this? You are my son. You are not an ordinary man. You carry this family name. You cannot marry from just anywhere because of emotion.
Mrs. Namdi added.
Love is not enough in a family like ours.
Chuka turned to her. Mother? She sat straighter. Marriage in this house is not only about feelings. It is about image, status, understanding the life you are entering. A woman coming into this family must know how to stand in certain places. She must understand high society. She must reflect this home. Chuka could not believe what he was hearing. He pointed toward Ifunanya with pain and anger in his voice.
She loved me when she thought I was poor. when she thought I was nothing. Does that not mean anything to both of you?
Mr. Namdi said nothing for a second. Then he replied,
It means she is sentimental. It does not mean she is fit.
that was the wrong thing to say. Chuka stood up at once.
Ifunanya is more fit to be in this family than any woman who would come here because of money.
His father's face darkened.
Mind how you speak to me.
But Chuka was already too angry to hide it. She treated me like a human being, he said.
She respected me when she believed I had nothing. Do you know how rare that is?
Mrs. Namdi shook her head slowly.
You are confused because you feel grateful.
No. I am clear because I know what real love looks like.
Through all this, Ifunanya sat quietly. She was hurt, deeply hurt. But she remained dignified. She did not beg. She did not cry in front of them. She only sat there and received their rejection with quiet pain. At last, Chuka looked at her and said, "Let us go." They stood up together. Mr. Namdi's voice stopped them before they reached the door.
If you walk out of this house with her, then choose well, because you will not return to this family as before. Leave that girl or lose access to the family money, the company, and your inheritance.
Chuka turned. Mrs. Namdi said nothing this time. She only watched. It was an ultimatum, clear and hard. But Chuka did not even need time to think. He looked at his father and said,
And I choose her.
and he walked out with Ifunanya. That same day, Chuka left the mansion for good. He refused to touch money from his personal accounts, even though he had enough there to make life easy. He wanted to prove something, not only to his father but to himself too. That choosing love alone was enough. That he was not weak without wealth. That the life he had seen from inside the bus was not beneath him. He and Ifunanya began a simple life together. For the first time, Chuka truly lived like the people he had once only watched from far away. No drivers, no security, no polished floors, no quiet servants moving around him. He started using the small money he had saved from his days as a conductor. He found small, humble work quietly, keeping himself going without returning to his father or touching the wealth he had left behind. The life was not easy, but he stayed firm. Ifunanya was happy to have him, truly happy. Yet inside her there was also a quiet struggle. At night, when she watched him lying in a small room instead of a great bedroom, when she saw him count small notes instead of signing large deals, when she noticed how calmly he carried it all, her heart would tighten. She knew what he had given up for her. And no matter how much love filled her heart, that truth did not leave her. At first, Chuka and Ifunanya tried hard to make their small room feel like enough. And for a little while, it was. They cooked together in the evening. Sometimes it was rice, sometimes noodles, sometimes just yam and egg if that was what they could afford. They laughed over simple meals. They shared one small bed and one weak fan that only worked when there was light. On better nights, they sat outside with sachet water and talked softly before going in. They did their best. They tried to make the life feel light, and sometimes it truly did. But hardship does not ask permission before it enters. Little by little, it came in. Bills began to pile up. The rent was small, but even small rent looked big when money was tight. Food had to be bought. Kerosene had to be bought. Transport had to be managed. The room itself began to feel smaller each day. It was hot. It was uncomfortable. It gave them no privacy from the noise outside. Children cried in the compound. Neighbors argued. Water was not always available. Chuka, who had once lived inside comfort without even thinking about it, now faced long days, little money, and quiet pressure from every side. But he never complained. That was the painful part. He never said, "I am tired of this." He never said, "I miss my old life." He never used his sacrifice to wound Ifunanya. Instead, he kept going. That only made Ifunanya feel worse. Sometimes she would watch him counting small notes late at night and feel tears gather in her eyes. Sometimes she would see the way he came home tired and dirty and remember the kind of life he had come from. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night and find him lying awake in silence. staring into the dark.
Chuka, are you alright?
I'm fine. Don't worry.
You always say that.
Because it's true.
He would say nothing was wrong, but she knew, and slowly she began to blame herself. She feared she had ruined his life. Though she loved him deeply, a hard thought began to grow inside her. Maybe love alone was not enough. It started in small ways.
Chuka, this is not the life you are used to.
I told you I chose this.
But why should you keep suffering for me?
I am not suffering for you. I am with the woman I love.
But Ifunanya did not stop. On another day, after their landlord came to remind them about a payment, she said quietly, "You deserve better than this." Chuka frowned. "Please do not start again. I am serious." "So am I," he said. "I am where I want to be." Still, she kept pushing. Not because she did not love him, but because she did. She could not watch him live this way and pretend it did not hurt. More than once he caught her crying when she thought he was not looking. He would hold her, try to calm her, tell her that things would get better. But the pressure was growing on both of them. Then his father reached out. Mr. Namdi did not call with softness. He sent for Chuka through a man he trusted. When Chuka finally went to see him, his father was as cold and controlled as ever.
There is still a way back.
Chuka stood before him without sitting. What way? His father looked at him for a long moment before speaking.
If you return properly, I will restore everything.
Chuka already knew there would be a price. What do I have to do? Mr. Namdi answered plainly. You will marry Oluchi. Chuka's face hardened at once. Oluchi was the daughter of his father's wealthy business friend. He knew her well enough. She was beautiful in the loud way rich girls often were, flashy, proud, always dressed to be seen, the kind of woman who liked attention more than peace. Everything about her was the opposite of Ifunanya.
I cannot marry her.
His father's voice did not change. Then remain where you are. Chuka left with anger burning inside him. He hated the idea. He hated everything about it. But when he returned and saw Ifunanya sitting in that small room, her eyes swollen from crying again, something in him weakened. The nights became heavier after that. He slept little. He thought too much. He listened to Ifunanya saying he deserved better. He watched her pain. He watched their struggle. And slowly the impossible thing began to feel like the only thing left. One night, after she had cried herself quiet again, Chuka sat beside her and said, If I go back,
will it give you peace?
Ifunanya looked at him at once.
Do not say that.
I am asking you.
Tears gathered in her eyes immediately.
I do not want to lose you.
But you do not want this life for me either.
She broke then. Not loudly, just painfully. She held his hand and wept. And in that moment, Chuka understood something terrible. Love was still there, but peace was gone. Love was beginning to drown. After many sleepless nights, after too much silence, and after seeing Ifunanya cry too often, Chuka agreed to return home. When he told her, Ifunanya did not stop him. She broke down completely after he left the room that morning, but she still let him go, because in her heart, she believed it was for his good. Chuka returned home. His father was pleased, though he hid it behind dignity. His mother, Mrs. Namdi, looked relieved too. Preparations began almost immediately. Oluchi was excited from the first moment she heard. She had always liked wealth, attention, and social status, and Chuka came with all three. To her, this was a victory. Chuka felt nothing like victory. He moved through the days as if someone else was living them for him. Clothes were chosen. Guests were invited. Meetings were held. Oluchi smiled for everyone. She talked about fabrics, jewelry, decor, photos, parties, and the kind of entrance she wanted to make. Chuka listened with an empty face. The engagement ceremony was grand, expensive, and beautiful on the outside. Music played. People laughed. Food was everywhere. Lights shone. Pictures were taken. Families smiled. But inside, Chuka felt broken. He stood through it all and gave Oluchi the hand everyone expected him to give her. But there was no joy in him. After the engagement, Chuka insisted they should remain in the family mansion and get to know each other first before the wedding. He said they had not properly dated, and there was no need to rush into setting up a separate home immediately. His father agreed because it made sense. Oluchi agreed because the mansion itself pleased her. And that was when her true character began to show clearly. She was lazy. She woke late and expected everybody around her to adjust. She was rude. She spoke to house staff as if they were objects, not people. She was obsessed with parties and clothes. Almost every day, there was one event, one outing, one new outfit, one new shoe, one new thing she wanted to show off. She was arrogant toward the workers in the house. If a maid was slow, she shouted. If food delayed, she insulted the cook. If the driver made a mistake, she spoke to him like dirt. And she showed no real interest in building a home with Chuka. No desire to know him deeply.
You call this parking? Look at this mess. This is not how you treat a vehicle worth more than you. Move it now. And don't you dare make me wait again.
And she showed no real interest in building a home with Chuka. No desire to know him deeply. No care for what sat inside his silence. She only wanted the life around him. The name. The wealth. The appearance. Chuka saw it all. And with every passing day he became colder and more withdrawn. He spoke less. Stayed away more. Sometimes he drove out alone just to breathe. Sometimes he sat in his room for long stretches, remembering a small hot room in Onitsha, where in spite of hardship, love once felt real. Meanwhile, after Chuka left, Ifunanya discovered she was pregnant. At first she only noticed the tiredness, then the weakness.
This tiredness doesn't feel normal. Maybe I just need to rest more.
Then the missed signs she could no longer explain away. When she finally confirmed it, fear gripped her. She sat with the result in her hand for a long time, unable to move. Pregnant. For Chuka. She did not know whether to cry or pray. Later, after further checks, the truth became even bigger. She was carrying triplets. The news left her shaken. 3 babies. Not one.
The scan confirms it, Ifunanya. You're having triplets.
No, it can't be.
She was overwhelmed at once. The money she had was small. Her body was already weak. Her heart was still bleeding from Chuka's absence. And now this. The first person she told was her friend Amara. Amara had been one of the few people standing near her through her pain. She was a simple, straightforward young woman who knew Ifunanya's struggles well. The moment Amara heard, she said,
You have to tell Chuka.
Ifunanya shook her head immediately. No. Amara stared at her. No? I will not tell him. Why? Ifunanya's eyes filled with tears. Because I will not break his new home. Amara was shocked. New home? What home? Those children are his. Ifunanya sat quietly, one hand resting over her stomach. I know, but he has gone. He has returned to that life. I cannot go there now and scatter everything. Amara was frustrated. This is not the time for foolish pride. It is not pride, Ifunanya said softly. It is the only mercy I can still give him. Amara argued again and again, but Ifunanya refused. In the end, she chose silence and faith. She suffered quietly. The little money she earned did not stretch far. Her body grew weaker as the pregnancy advanced. The triplets made everything heavier, faster. Some mornings she could barely stand well. Some nights she cried into her pillow and pressed her hand over her mouth so her mother would not hear. She missed Chuka deeply, not just as the father of her children, as the man she loved, as the man who had once eaten roasted corn with her by the roadside and looked at her as if she mattered. But she kept everything hidden. And in the large mansion where he now lived among polished floors and expensive silence, Chuka had no idea that somewhere else, the woman he still loved was carrying not 1 child, but 3. Life in the mansion continued, but peace did not return. Oluchi settled in quickly, but not in a good way. The more time she spent in the house, the more careless she became. She treated the place like a hotel, not a home. She woke up late, changed clothes several times a day, made endless phone calls, and planned outings more than anything else. If she was not talking about a party, she was talking about a new dress, a new wig, or some event she wanted to attend. Mrs. Namdi watched quietly. She had already noticed that Oluchi was lazy and rude, but now she began to notice something deeper. Oluchi had no interest in learning anything about the house or the family. She did not ask how things were run. She did not care about Chuka's mood. She did not even try to win his heart. She only cared about the life around him. Mrs. Namdi did not like it. So one day, when an important dinner was coming up, she made a decision. She told Oluchi that she would prepare the food herself. Oluchi laughed at first, thinking it was a joke.
For the dinner tonight, you will prepare the food yourself.
Prepare it myself. You're joking, right?
I am not. Important guests are coming. It is time to show what your hands can do.
You are the woman my son is to marry. It is time you learn to do something with your own hands. Oluchi's smile faded. She had never truly cooked in her life. Still, she did not want to look foolish, so she pretended she could handle it. That afternoon, she entered the kitchen with pride and confusion mixed together. The cook and the maid stood back under Mrs. Namdi's instruction. Nobody was to help her. At first, Oluchi tried to act as if she knew what she was doing. She gave sharp orders, opened pots, checked ingredients, and moved around with false confidence. But as the hours passed, the truth became obvious. She did not know where to start. She did not know the right quantity for anything. She added the wrong things, forgot the right things, burnt one pot and oversalted another. By evening, the whole kitchen was a mess. The food that finally came out was worse. When the guests sat down to eat, the smiles on their faces slowly died. One man coughed after the first spoon. One woman quietly dropped her cutlery. Another guest took water at once, trying not to show the shock on his face. The room became uncomfortable. The embarrassment spread quickly. Mr. Namdi, who had invited those men with pride, sat there in quiet humiliation. He looked from the guests to the table, then to Oluchi, who was forcing a smile and pretending not to notice the disaster. After the dinner, he was angry. For the first time, he saw clearly that the girl he had forced on his son was far from the perfect wife he had imagined. Still, that alone did not change his heart. Inside himself, he brushed it aside. Rich girls, he told himself, were often not domesticated. That was not enough reason to destroy an arrangement that still made sense for the family and business. So the matter did not end there. But something else was already brewing. Mrs. Namdi had begun to notice that Oluchi often received secret phone calls, not ordinary calls. These ones made her leave the room or lower her voice. Sometimes she would step outside to take them. Other times she would smile strangely after ending them. At first, Mrs. Namdi only watched. Then she became suspicious. She quietly hired someone to follow Oluchi. The truth came back ugly. Oluchi had an old lover. Not a man from her social circle. Not one of the polished young men her father would approve of. It was her father's young driver, a man who had worked for their family for some years. Mrs. Namdi was stunned. So that was it. Oluchi had agreed to marry Chuka not because she loved him, but because she could never openly marry the poor driver she truly wanted. The marriage was cover, respectability, protection, wealth, a safe way to bury the truth and still keep her affair hidden. Mrs. Namdi was furious. This time her anger was different. It was no longer about bad food, laziness, or rude behavior. It was betrayal. She decided she would expose Oluchi. But before she could act, something happened that changed everything. One afternoon, Mrs. Namdi went to the market with her driver. She sometimes liked to go there herself, especially when she wanted fresh things and a little quiet away from the house. As she moved through the market, her eyes caught a familiar face. She stopped walking. It was Ifunanya. She was standing near a stall, and at first Mrs. Namdi almost did not recognize her. She looked tired, too tired. Her clothes were simple and loose. Her face had lost fullness, and her stomach was large, so large that Mrs. Namdi's eyes widened at once. She was heavily pregnant. Mrs. Namdi felt a strange shock pass through her. For a quick moment she assumed the pregnancy belonged to another man. That thought came and went in one breath. Her face tightened. She stepped closer. "Ifunanya?" she called. Ifunanya turned slowly. The moment their eyes met, both women froze for a second. Mrs. Namdi saw the shock on Ifunanya's face too. They greeted each other awkwardly. Mrs. Namdi did not even know what to say next. Too much stood between them. Too much pride. Too much past pain. She was just about to turn away when Ifunanya swayed suddenly. The color drained from her face. Then, before either of them could react, she fainted. Mrs. Namdi shouted at once. Her driver rushed forward. Together they caught Ifunanya before she hit the ground badly. People gathered around. Market women began asking questions, but Mrs. Namdi did not waste time. "Carry her to the car," she said. They rushed her to the hospital. By the time Ifunanya became conscious again, Mrs. Namdi had already spoken to the doctor. The doctor had told her everything they knew. Ifunanya was carrying triplets, and she had fainted because of lack of proper rest, food, and care. Mrs. Namdi sat there quietly after hearing it, feeling as if something had struck her chest. Triplets. And the girl had been moving around the market in that condition. When Ifunanya finally opened her eyes, she looked weak and confused. Then she saw Mrs. Namdi sitting beside the bed and tried to rise. "Please lie down," Mrs. Namdi said quickly. Ifunanya obeyed. For a moment there was silence. Then Mrs. Namdi asked carefully,
Who is the father of the children, Ifunanya?
Ifunanya looked at her. Her eyes filled slowly with tears. Then in a quiet voice she told the truth.
They are Chuka's.
Mrs. Namdi went still. Even though something inside her had already begun to suspect it, hearing it said aloud shook her deeply. Guilt rose inside her like heat. All at once, she saw what their pride had done. They had sent Chuka away from the woman who truly loved him. They had watched him return empty. And while they were busy protecting status, this same girl had been carrying his children in suffering. Not one child. 3. Mrs. Namdi lowered her eyes for a moment, ashamed. Then she looked back at Ifunanya and asked softly,
Why did you not tell anyone?
Ifunanya swallowed.
I did not want to scatter his new life.
That answer broke something in Mrs. Namdi. This girl was still thinking of Chuka's peace after everything she had suffered. That same day, Mrs. Namdi made a decision. She did not take Ifunanya to the family mansion. Instead, she took her to one of her private houses. It was quiet, spacious, and far from the tension of the main home, a safe place. She decided she would care for her there in secret. Mrs. Namdi provided everything Ifunanya needed. A better house, good food, regular doctor visits, a maid to help her, a driver to take her anywhere she needed to go. And when she learned that Ifunanya's mother was alone and struggling too, she brought the widowed woman into the house as well. For the first time in many months, Ifunanya felt safe. It did not happen all at once. At first, she moved through the house like someone expecting the kindness to end. She spoke carefully, ate carefully, rested with guilt in her heart. But day after day, the care remained. Mrs. Namdi began visiting often, always in secret. At first, the visits were full of quietness. Then slowly, they grew warmer. She saw how Ifunanya treated the maid respectfully. She saw how grateful she was for even small help. She saw how she spoke gently to her mother. She saw that there was no bitterness in her, even after everything. And the more Mrs. Namdi saw, the softer her heart became. She started loving Ifunanya like a daughter. More than once, she sat beside her and watched her resting, one hand over her stomach, and wondered how she had once believed this girl was not good enough for her son. Back at the mansion, Chuka began to notice a change in his mother. She was lighter, calmer. There was peace in her face that had not been there before. Mrs. Namdi no longer seemed as weighed down. One evening, Chuka asked,
Mother, what changed?
She smiled faintly.
Nothing changed.
But Chuka was not convinced. He watched her closely in the days that followed, and noticed she left the house often now, quietly, sometimes with only her driver. sometimes looking thoughtful when she returned, sometimes even happy. He wondered what was behind it, but Mrs. Namdi said nothing. She wanted the truth to come out at the right time. And so, while Chuka moved through the mansion with no idea what was being hidden from him, the woman he still loved was resting under his mother's protection, carrying his triplets, and waiting without knowing what the next chapter of her life would bring. Not long after Ifunanya was moved into the private house, the labor started. It began in the night. At first, she thought it was just the usual pain that had become part of her body in those last weeks. But when the pain grew sharper and closer together, the maid quickly called Mrs. Namdi. Within a short time, the driver had already brought the car around. Ifunanya's mother was shaking with fear. Mrs. Namdi held her hand and told her to be strong. At the hospital, everything became fast. Doctors moved in and out. Nurses spoke in quick voices. Ifunanya was in pain, serious pain, the kind that made her forget everything else for some moments. But through it all, she kept breathing, kept pushing, kept holding on. The birth was difficult. It was emotional. It was exhausting. But it was safe. By the time it was over, 3 babies had entered the world. 2 baby boys and 1 baby girl. Mrs. Namdi stood there with tears in her eyes when she saw them. Small, delicate, alive. The sight of them touched her in a way she could not explain. She had known they were coming, had prayed for them, had worried over them, but seeing them with her own eyes was different. They were Chuka's children. They were her grandchildren. And suddenly, nothing felt more important than making things right. By the next morning, Ifunanya was resting weakly in the hospital bed. 1 baby was in her arms. Another lay carefully beside her. The 3rd had just been returned after the nurses checked him. Mrs. Namdi looked at them for a long time. Then she made up her mind. The time had come to tell Chuka. That day she went back to the mansion and found him in his room, sitting alone the way he often did now. "Come with me," she said.
Come with me.
Where?
"I want to visit someone in the hospital." He frowned slightly. "Why me?" Mrs. Namdi forced herself to stay calm. "Because I want you to come." There was something in her face that made him stop asking questions. So he followed her. The drive was quiet. Chuka kept glancing at his mother, but she said very little. He thought maybe somebody important was sick, maybe a family friend, maybe an older relative. He had no idea what was waiting for him. When they entered the hospital room, Chuka stopped walking. He froze. Ifunanya was there. She looked weak and pale, but peaceful too. And around her were babies. 1 in her arms, 1 beside her, another in the cot near the bed. For a moment his mind could not make sense of what he was seeing. He looked at Ifunanya, then at the babies, then at his mother.
What is this?
They are yours.
The room went still. Chuka stared at her. Then he turned back to the babies, as if his eyes needed to confirm what his ears had just heard. "Mine," he whispered. His mother nodded. "Yes, your children." That was the moment he broke. The tears came before he could stop them. He moved closer slowly, as if afraid the whole thing might disappear if he rushed. When he reached the bed, he looked at Ifunanya with eyes full of shock, love, regret, and pain. Then he looked at the babies again. 2 boys, 1 girl, his children. He dropped to his knees beside the bed and covered part of his face with 1 hand as tears ran freely. For some moments, he could not speak. When he finally did, his voice was shaking badly.
Ifunanya.
She looked at him with quiet tears in her own eyes. Chuka held the edge of the bed and said,
I am sorry.
The words were not enough, and he knew it.
I am so sorry. Should not have left you. No matter what was happening, I should not have left you.
Ifunanya's lips trembled, but she said nothing yet. Chuka went on, words pouring out of him. I blame myself every day. I tried to come back.
After I left, I came back to look for you. I wanted to see you. I wanted to help you with money at least. But the neighbors told me you moved out the next day after I left.
He lowered his head, crying harder.
I was too broken after that.
I was not strong enough to keep searching. I thought I had already destroyed everything. I thought maybe you had gone somewhere to forget me.
The shame in his voice was deep.
I am sorry for everything you went through. I am sorry I was not there. I am sorry you carried this pain alone.
Ifunanya watched him with tears slipping quietly down her face. Then she reached out weakly and placed her hand on his. "Chuka," she said softly. He looked up.
I know the truth now. I know everything was not only your fault.
But I still failed you.
Ifunanya gave a tired little smile.
And I still forgive you.
Chuka bent his head and wept beside the bed, holding her hand like a man who had been drowning and had suddenly touched land. Mrs. Namdi stood back and let them have the moment, tears in her own eyes too. Later that day, when Chuka had finally held all 3 babies one after the other and could still hardly believe they were real, he said there was one more thing he needed to do. He went to bring his father. Mr. Namdi did not understand at first why Chuka was so insistent. "Come with me," Chuka said. "Please." There was something different in his voice, something Mr. Namdi had not heard in a long time, so he followed. When they entered the hospital room, Mr. Namdi stopped just as Chuka had stopped. He saw Ifunanya first, then the babies. Then he looked at Chuka. No one needed to explain much. The truth was already in the room. Still, Chuka said it.
Daddy, these are my children.
Mr. Namdi stood still, his face changing slowly. He moved closer. He looked at the babies carefully, and then something in him softened in a way Chuka had never seen before. They looked so much like Chuka when he was born. Especially one of the boys. The same forehead, the same mouth, the same tiny shape of the face. Mr. Namdi's eyes grew wet. All at once, the full weight of what he had done came back to him. His pride, his harshness, his need to control his son's future. The woman he had rejected was the same woman who had truly loved his son and had now carried his children in pain. Not 1 child, 3. And she had suffered quietly while he sat in comfort, still defending the decisions that caused it. He looked at Ifunanya for a long moment. This time, he did not see a poor girl from the wrong background. He saw the mother of his grandchildren. He saw the woman who had loved his son without conditions. He saw dignity, and he felt ashamed. Mr. Namdi stepped closer to the bed. His voice, when he finally spoke, had lost all its usual hardness. "Ifunanya, I was wrong." The room grew quiet again. He swallowed and continued.
I hurt you. I hurt my son. I let pride lead me where wisdom should have spoken. I am sorry.
Ifunanya's eyes filled again. She had not expected to hear that from him. Mr. Namdi looked at Chuka next.
I was wrong. You chose well. I did not see it.
Chuka said nothing. He only held one of the babies and listened. Then Mr. Namdi said the words that truly changed everything.
Ifunanya is part of this family, and these children will never be hidden.
For the first time in a very long while, something like peace entered Chuka's heart. But back at the mansion, another storm was already rising. Oluchi had begun to notice that Chuka and his parents were always going out, not once or twice, often, too often. And each time they returned with faces that told her something was being hidden from her. She became suspicious. At first she asked questions lightly, but nobody gave her answers. Then she started watching, then pressing. At last she cornered the family driver when he was alone and refused to let him go until he spoke. The man tried to stay silent, but under pressure the truth slipped out. Oluchi found out about Ifunanya and the babies. She was furious, humiliated. So that was where Chuka had been going. So that was the secret they had all been keeping while she was in the mansion pretending everything was normal. Without wasting time, she called her father. Her voice was full of anger as she told him everything. Her father was outraged. He called Mr. Namdi almost at once and threatened him with broken business ties. He said the engagement would not be disgraced. He said their arrangement could not be broken like this. He warned that if Chuka pulled away now, their business relationship would suffer badly. But this time, Mr. Namdi did not bend. He had changed. Maybe not in every way, but enough. His voice was calm when he answered. My son will not stay in a dead engagement because of business. Oluchi's father was stunned.
But
Mr. Namdi went on.
I made that mistake once. I will not make it again.
And with that, the line between the old life and the new one became even clearer. Not long after, Mrs. Namdi decided it was time to end everything properly. She did not shout. She did not create a public scene. She simply called Oluchi into the sitting room one afternoon and told her to sit down. Mr. Namdi was there. Chuka was there. The air in the room felt heavy before anyone even spoke. Oluchi looked from one face to another and sensed at once that something was wrong. Still, she tried to carry herself with her usual pride. Mrs. Namdi looked at her calmly and said, Your time in this house is over. Oluchi's face changed immediately. What do you mean? Mrs. Namdi did not answer in a rush. She placed a small brown envelope on the table in front of her. Inside were photographs, call records, and enough proof to show what Oluchi had been hiding. Her secret affair, the young driver from her father's house, the calls, the meetings, the lies. Oluchi stared at the evidence, and for the first time since she entered the Namdi house, her confidence broke. She tried to speak, but no clear words came out. Mrs. Namdi's voice remained steady.
You did not come here with a clean heart. You were using my son as a cover while keeping another man. It is not like that. It is exactly like that.
Mr. Namdi said nothing, but his face was hard with disappointment. Then Chuka spoke. His voice was low but very clear.
I never loved you, Oluchi. I never accepted this engagement in my heart. I only came back because everything around me had broken. But even then, what we had was never real.
Oluchi looked at him with wounded pride and anger. Chuka continued.
Now the truth is out. There is nothing left to pretend.
That was the end of it. Oluchi understood. Her secret had been exposed, and she could no longer use Chuka as a shield. She was forced to pack and leave. There was no grand fight, no long begging, just shame, real shame. For the first time in her life, wealth could not save her from it. When she returned to her father's house, things were not waiting for her there the way she expected. Her parents had already learned of the affair. Instead of defending her, they were angry and deeply disappointed. Her father called her foolish. Her mother wept in frustration.
We know everything, the shame you brought.
We raised you better. This is disgraceful.
I'm so sorry.
Foolish girl.
They did not only see a daughter who had been exposed. They saw the wealthy connection with the Namdi family slipping through their hands. They blamed her for it. Oluchi, who had always moved through life with pride and ease, now sat in her father's house, angry, broken, and humiliated. And for Chuka, the chain around his neck finally snapped. With the engagement ended, he was free. This time, when he returned to Ifunanya, he did not come with confusion, pressure, or divided loyalty. He came fully. He came with truth. He came with peace in his heart. And Ifunanya's mother, who had watched her daughter suffer quietly for many months, received him with warmth that surprised him. She did not hold bitterness against him. She saw the tears in his eyes when he held the babies. She saw the regret he carried. And she also saw that her daughter still loved him. So she welcomed him.
Take care of her this time.
I will.
He did not rush Ifunanya. That was one thing he had learned. Love cannot be forced back into place just because the road is open again. So he moved slowly, patiently. He spent time with the babies, holding them one after another, sometimes with a smile, sometimes with tears in his eyes. 2 little boys and 1 baby girl. Sometimes he just sat and watched them sleep as if still amazed they were real. He helped Ifunanya however he could. If the babies cried at night, he got up too. If she was tired, he stayed near. If she needed silence, he gave it. If she needed comfort, he gave that too. Slowly, he rebuilt trust. Not with speeches, not with promises alone, but with presence, with humility, with care. And little by little, Ifunanya's heart rested fully in him again. Mrs. Namdi supported them completely now. She visited often, helped with the children, and showed Ifunanya a tenderness that would have seemed impossible not long ago. Even Mr. Namdi changed. He was not suddenly a soft man, that was not his nature. But he tried. He came around more. He spoke with less pride. He carried one of the boys once and stood there quiet for a long time, staring down at the child's face in a way that told Chuka everything. He was trying to become a better father, trying to make peace with what he had broken. Time moved forward. The babies grew stronger. Ifunanya regained her health, and the house that had once held her pain now held something new. Peace. Then, when the time was right, Chuka asked Ifunanya to marry him again. This time there were no lies between them. No hidden identity. No family war. No forced arrangement standing over them. Just truth. And love that had survived what should have destroyed it.
Ifunanya, I ask you again, with all the truth in my heart and peace in my soul, will you marry me?
When Ifunanya said yes, it was not with the innocence of the first time she loved him. It was deeper than that. It was the yes of a woman who had seen pain, loss, fear, shame, separation, and mercy, and still chose love.
Chuka, yes. 1,000 times yes.
Their wedding was grand. But what made it beautiful was not the money. Yes, there were fine clothes. Yes, there were flowers, music, and guests. Yes, the hall was filled with light and joy. But none of that was the true beauty of the day. The true beauty was peace. Mrs. Namdi smiled with full joy, not forced politeness. Mr. Namdi stood with pride, but this time it was the right kind of pride. Ifunanya's mother wept openly during the ceremony. And when Chuka looked at Ifunanya in her wedding dress, simple and graceful even in all the beauty around her, he felt something stronger than happiness. He felt gratitude. Truth had won. That was what made the wedding beautiful. After their marriage, Chuka never forgot the life he had touched while pretending to be a bus conductor. That season changed him too deeply. He could not return to being the man he was before. Now, when he sat in business meetings, he remembered the bus park. When he saw drivers at his gate, he remembered the men who ate bread and coke by the roadside. When he saw workers moving around his home or company, he no longer saw only staff. He saw human beings carrying hidden burdens. He became a more compassionate businessman. Not weak, not careless, but more human. He raised wages in places where they had been unfair. He improved conditions for staff. He treated people with the dignity he now knew they deserved. And with Ifunanya by his side, he started a foundation. It was not just for show. It came from what they had both lived through. Through the foundation, they helped transport workers, drivers, conductors, widows, and struggling mothers. They paid hospital bills, helped children return to school, supported women carrying pregnancies without help, assisted families who had almost nothing. Chuka brought structure and resources. Ifunanya brought heart. She remained humble even in wealth. That never changed. She still spoke gently to workers, still remembered what it felt like to have little, still treated people with respect no matter who they were, and Chuka loved her all the more for it. Their triplets grew like small daily miracles before them. The boys carried pieces of Chuka's face. Their little girl had Ifunanya's soft eyes. Every time Chuka looked at them, he was reminded that real love had survived pride, hardship, and separation. One quiet evening, years after all the chaos had passed, Chuka sat in the garden outside their home and watched his children playing nearby. Ifunanya was sitting not far from him, laughing softly as one of the boys tried to run with both shoes in the wrong feet while their sister chased after him. The setting sun threw warm light across the grass. The air was peaceful. The kind of peace that only comes after a storm has truly ended. Chuka looked at Ifunanya for a long moment. Then he looked at the children again. And in that simple evening silence, he understood something fully. The love he had almost lost had become the greatest blessing of his life. He had gone searching for true love in dust, noise, and hardship. And somehow, by the mercy of God, he had found it. Not in wealth, not in status, but in the quiet heart of a woman who had loved him when he looked like nothing. And now, with Ifunanya beside him and their triplets before him, Chuka knew he would spend the rest of his life thanking God that truth had found its way back home.